Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Flags over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, public comment will occur during the meeting's public comment portion. You can raise your hand remotely or in person, and once acknowledged, please state your name and ward to include it in the minutes, and please limit your time to 3 minutes. Public comment is governed by policy BEDH. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda?
Yes, we are removing 9D from the agenda this evening, and that will be moved to the April, I believe it's 9th meeting. And then, Chair, I believe you have the order of taking, after we do the minutes, taking the presentation for there, and then we should be moving into non-public after there because we'll have legal consult. Right,
so after the 9I, we will have to break for a non-meeting with legal right then, but we will come back for the rest of the agenda. Okay, thank you. Let's see, we are going to do, is there any public comment in the room? No, is there any public comment online?
There is no public comment online.
Okay, great. We will reopen public comment at the end of the meeting. All right, so that brings us to election of officers. So we will take nominations for the following 3 positions, chair, vice chair, and secretary. The mentor position, which you all will hear about later, is appointed by the chair. So we'll open it up for nominations for chair. Jessica.
I nominate Lil Mon as chair.
Okay, thanks. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay. Are there any additional nominations? Okay, then.
It's not that.
It's a great honor.
Yeah.
It's a great honor.
Great honor.
Great honor. It pays an honor, too. All right, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Great, thank you. Thank you all. Now I can officially be the chair of this meeting again. All right, then we're moving on to vice chair. Are there any, oh, Tia, it's so
Sorry,
quick.
I'm
They're
fast.
so fast with these nominations. Tia, go ahead.
I nominate John D'Entremont as vice chair of the board.
Okay, is there a second? Jessica seconds. Are there any additional nominations?
Keep running it.
I know, so fast. Any additional nominations? No? Okay, all those in favor? Great.
John, get up there.
Yeah, you do actually have to move up here, though.
You're gonna go sit at the head of the table now.
You have to go sit up here. That's your one thing that you have to do. All right, so secretary, are there any well, geez. All right, go ahead.
I will nominate Tia Winter to be secretary.
Oh, okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, are there any other nominations? No, okay. All those in favor? Great, that was really fast. Good job. Congratulations, everyone. So chair runs the meetings, vice chair and helps run the meeting and helps do the agendas. Secretary takes notes when we go into non-public sessions or non-meeting sessions. And the secretary will also keep track of the correspondence that comes to the board as a whole, not to you individually, but if it comes to the whole board, then she will keep track of the correspondence folder. Great, thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to, is it not yet? We're just going to keep going until Jim gets here at 6:45. So we'll just continue on with the, we don't have a student report either, do we?
There is no student report this evening, so I think,
Okay, that's fine. And there is no correspondence either, so we'll skip right along. All right, so we are on to 8, the consent agenda. We need a motion to approve the public minutes from the March 5th, 2025 meeting.
I will make a motion to approve the public minutes from March 5th, 2025.
Great, motion by John, can we get a second? Second by Richard. Are there any corrections to that agenda? So John, this is also your job. Now that MJ is not here, you have to read them very carefully, and because she's really good at doing that, so you can do that. Okay, great, thanks. All right, So for this vote, if you weren't at the meetings, you just abstain from those. So all those in favor of approving the public minutes from March 5th? Huh? Hold on.
Correction.
You have to correction? Okay, let's do that. Let's fix that before we do it. That's great. Adjournment. That's right, you had left by then. No, that was my fault. Nope, that was my fault. That's not Kamala's fault. It's my fault. Thank you. Oh, and I think that, and John wasn't here either, so I actually don't think that we can approve those minutes because we don't have a quorum. So we have to,
Recognize.
we can recognize them, but we can't approve them.
Question is, if, okay, so we'd have to have everybody, because we only just had a quorum, but members who were here are no longer served.
But remember, but there's enough of us that, well, that's a good question. No,
I believe
because
abstention count?
that's true. It can count.
So I think we have,
We say
we
we
have
have
a
enough.
quorum to approve
We have a
it.
quorum to approve it. Okay, so let's do that again. All right, all those in favor of approving this, raise your hand. So that's 1, 4. Any abstentions? 4. Good. And no absences. Perfect.
All those present who attended the meeting agree that
Yes.
the minutes are correct.
We do.
so-
We do. So we're going to move on. Okay.
I'm
The
gonna-
same problem happens for the non-public minutes for March 5th. So I need a motion to approve the non-public minutes for March 5th.
I'll make a motion to approve the non-public meeting minutes from March 5th, 2025.
Okay, and all of this is in your packets, by the way, as we're filing. So motion by Richard, motion by John, second by Richard. Any corrections to those? No. Okay, same thing. All those in favor of the non-public minutes? Richard, you have to vote. There's only 3. All right. Abstentions? Okay, 5 abstentions. All right. Okay, perfect. Great. What time is it? Not here yet.
We have 5 minutes till he'll be joining us.
Want to do an update?
Sure, I'll start with mine.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to welcome our new board members. We're excited to have you here, and I look forward to the work we'll accomplish together. I would like to share some exciting news from the district. The Tango Flight class from the high school recently presented to the State Board of Education during the SCU highlight with the intention of promoting public education. The State Board was impressed with the class rigor, the student engagement, particularly praising our students' communication, collaboration, and critical thinking skills. They've also been invited to present at NEASC, which is the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. It's our high school accreditation board. So when they came up to do the Lebanon High School accreditation site, they were impressed by the class and asked them to present again. Last week, I presented at the New Hampshire Association of School Administrators Conference on personnel. I presented with the Super Eval organization. I'm going to schedule a follow-up meeting with them to discuss the feedback on the board's self-eval, and so that we can personalize the language for Lebanon and New Hampshire rather than having the work standards. Additionally, we had a great professional learning day with our staff last week. Karen is going to share more details with that during her update. And then finally, on another note, I'd like to wish 4th grader Mahima Singh from Hanover Street Elementary School good luck in the state spelling bee and congratulate her on her win of the regionals. So I believe that is this weekend. Lastly, the concerts at the Opera House were great. I want to thank everyone who participated and, again, supporting the arts in the Lebanon School District. Spring sports and end-of-year activities are gearing up, so those will be listed on our school's website. So that includes my brief update for this evening. Any questions?
Thank you. We still have a few minutes before our lawyer who's presenting next gets on. So why don't we go around the table and introduce ourselves, which I should have done before we did all of this. But if you could just tell us who you are and maybe where your kids are, that might be helpful to place people. You have kids in the district. So in order to use the mic, you press the...
Hi, Joe Castellat. My oldest child is a student at Mount Lebanon.
Hi, I'm Carrie O'Hara. I have 2 kids in the district and 2 who will be joining at some point.
My oldest is here in 7th grade, and then I have a kindergartner at Hanover Street.
John D'Entremont. I have an 8th grader at the middle school and a sophomore at the high school.
I'm Tim Ball. I'm the business administrator. I have 4 kids, and my youngest is a senior at the high school.
Amy Allen, I'm your superintendent.
Lil Mon, chair now again. And I have a freshman and a junior at the high school.
I'm Tia Winter. I have a 1st grader and a 4th grader at Hanover Street School.
I'm Richard Ford Burley. You can, because no one else does. And I have a 3-year-old who's attending days a week at Mountain Lab.
I'm Jessica Satterley Hall. I have 2 kindergartners who are at Hanover Street School.
I'm Layla Voley. I have a kindergartner at Hanover Street School and twin 3-year-olds who will be joining eventually.
All right, thank you very much.
Tyler, could you come up and assist me? I am having difficulty promoting Mr. Shaughnessy. All right, Jim, just give us 30 seconds and we'll get you up on the screen. So we just welcomed our 3 new school board members, and he gets up there. Jim O'Shaughnessy is our, that's not Jim. He is our lawyer from Drummond and Wilson. So tonight in this public session, he's going to talk to us about the SAU deed. So I'll turn it over to you, Jim.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, we can hear you. Go ahead.
You can hear me. All right. I just want to make sure. So really I'm going to keep it kind of short. In about 2014, the school district obtained an order from Grafton County Superior Court granting a quiet title petition, which is basically an order from the court saying that you have ownership of the property, the Seminary Hill School property. And that was done because the historic records show that at one point in time, that school was operated by a seminary. At some point in the 1890s, the school district took over operation of the school, operated a school out of that building for, over a century. And there's no clear records during that time period of the seminary transferring ownership or deed to the school district. So in order to get title, which means clear ownership of the property, the school district went to Grafton Superior Court and obtained a quiet title order from the court. Basically, that means you have clear title. It extinguishes all other claims or all other discrepancies about who owns and has titles to the property. And it's a pretty clear-cut situation from a legal perspective. And I've had a couple of conversations with colleagues about sort of what would be the prudent next step for the board if it wanted to move forward with selling that property. And at least in terms of like title deed ownership, there, as far as we know, and we haven't done a real search of the registry of deeds in your county, but we don't suspect there's anything actually on file right now. So I think the next step would be to get a certified copy of that order, the quiet title order from the court, and to properly file that at the registry of deeds. That way, any questions about the status of ownership or title is sort of clear and on record. Typically, when you then go through like a real estate sale process, doing the title work is just a normal part of that process. So when and when you market the property, you can put a statement in there about how you have clear ownership through the quiet title, and then through that title work, the buyers will then be able to locate all of that information in the registry when they have their title person do their title work. It's really not gonna cause an issue. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy to answer questions, but like I was kind of looking at this just in the scope of like, what do we do about the status of the deed? We have all these old records, like that's the status. The old deed from 1896, which I didn't try to spend an hour and a half translating. It's not, I mean, you had someone do a title abstract, like we understand what the old deed said, but it basically becomes irrelevant. The quiet title action, I guess we say like obviates or just renders it meaningless or void because you have an order from the court saying you have clear title of that property. Is this a good time to stop? Are there questions? Do you want me to talk about like other things in the process? Where do you want to go from here?
Go ahead, Richard.
Hi, Jim. How you doing? I did actually spend the time to not so much translate, transcribe those old deeds, and there was a mention when it was running as a seminary that part of the deal was that they would give a full scholarship to one student from somewhere or other, so long as it was run. And I wonder if the quiet title changes those conditions as well. Any of the hangers on in those deeds.
Just to be clear, it said who would give us a scholarship.
I can actually email this to you if you're interested, and we can talk about
Sure.
it over that. But it was a strange deal. Whoever donated the land to make the seminary had the seminary promise that like they could have one spot at the seminary they could plop someone into. At any point.
I mean, I don't think any of that is valid or enforceable at this point in
But I just
time.
wanted to just triple check that there isn't someone out there who could be like, yes, but I would like my student to go.
Yeah, I think that. So
Yeah, no, I mean that's the purpose of the quiet title action is so that the court can say, look, there really are no interested parties from this like now long ago non-existent seminary that are going to assert a property right or interest here. So the judge just basically entered the quiet title order on the basis that you had been operating that school for so long. Really, it's through adverse possession that you now are owners because there really is no other option here. So I don't think I don't have any issues like concerns about someone being able to assert a right to a scholarship.
Perfect, wonderful. Just triple checking.
Do you have another question, Jeff?
no, that pretty much covered mine.
Okay.
Basically, we're good.
Yeah. All right. That is really helpful, Jim. Thank you very much. It's good to have it official that we own the building. This is the question, and we don't have any restrictions placed on what we do with the building. Okay, great. Does anybody else have any more questions for Jim about the deed? Okay, so we are going to take a break from the full meeting and go into a meeting with Jim about some other matter, and then we'll come back here. Yeah. So we're not sure, but we will go ahead and do a roll call vote. So when we leave to go to non-publics and I guess non-meetings as well, then we do a roll call vote in person when every person has to say their vote instead of doing it by hand. So
Is this non-public or?
it's going to be non-meeting because it's with,
Or
well, we're going to do it just to make sure. All right, so can I get a motion?
So do you want a motion for non-public? Or
Motion to
Take a
take a recess.
motion to take a recess?
Okay, let's do that. Motion to take a recess by John,
Seconded.
second by Ash. All right, roll call vote. Layla?
Aye.
Just say yes. Okay, good. Just have to answer it out loud. Jessica?
Yes.
Richard?
Yep.
Tia?
Yes.
I'm a yes. John?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Okay, great. We'll return.
Non-meetings don't require.
That's what that's what I thought. Before I go in there with
Okay. I'd like to call the school board meeting back to order, and we will proceed to 9B, which is the business administrator update.
Good evening. I actually have a few things to talk about tonight. First of all, in front of you is the audit. For those of you who are new, we get audited every year, usually around September, and it takes the winter to put it together. So this is for your reading if you want. In the packet was a summary letter from the audit firm, and I wanted to bring your attention to, it's not a very well organized letter. It's not my fault. It's from the auditors. I think it's page 3 at the very bottom. The issues, obviously you read it all, but the issues or findings, they say, are what you see on the bottom of page 3, key audit matters, and on to page 4. I wanted to go over, we typically don't have very many findings, and we don't have a lot this time, but more than we like. So I just wanted to, in interest of full transparency, go over those with you, so if you have any questions. Deputy, the very bottom of page 3 says Deputy Treasurer. These are things they want us to fix. Deputy Treasurer repeat comment means that they brought it up at the last audit, and we have done some work on finding a Deputy Treasurer, but honestly, I haven't made it the priority it needs to be. So I don't want that next year. So if you know someone who, I think we have one promising name, I think, and I can't remember who it is now, but if you, the treasurer position is a elected position. That's Barbie Hazlitt. She's been a treasurer for a long time. The auditors are saying best practices, have a deputy treasurer appointed, someone who knows the job. It's a little challenging. Really, the big issue has simply just been time. So our treasurer is only here when she can come, usually a couple Wednesdays for a couple hours a month. So getting the deputy treasurer who wants to do and can meet that schedule and can train with Barbie, that's a challenge, but it's a challenge that I promise you we're going to work on. Outdated policies, that's on top of page 4. That should be gone next year. Untimely student activity fund deposits. Deposits are supposed to be done within a week, and that we don't want this finding, but I just want to let you know, like, we get hundreds of deposits, and each school does their own deposits, and I got to do them weekly. If there's one that's not, they'll find it. So we hammer that home to the schools, and they do a good job, but somebody missed one. Positive pay for checks. That is, I don't know why that, I was kind of grumpy. I don't really have a lot of, I can argue them on findings, and I'm like, I don't know why this is a finding, but, so positive pay. So a couple of years ago, we got hit by a cyber attack. And then right after that, someone was trying to, they actually like printed fake checks of ours, and a random church in Henniker called me and said, I found a check that says Lebanon School District in the bushes. Is this your check? So I had them send it to me, and I was grateful for that. And so our funds weren't accessed at all, but someone was trying something. So the auditors, and we're 90% done with this, our auditors want us to do positive pay with a bank. What that is that when we cut checks, this is for written paper checks, when we write checks, we send a file to the bank that says we wrote, this is the check number, the vendor, and the amount. And when someone tries to cash that check, it matches it up. I've been working with Bar Harbor Bank, our bank, and we're almost there. We just have to, the test file bounced back, so we have to fix our formatting. And time and effort is the last one. When we get federal grants, which we get a lot of federal grants, we have to, the people who are paid out of that grant have to document their time. This should not happen, and it usually doesn't, but we need to buckle down. I mean, you see it says right there that someone didn't, one employee did not properly complete the required time and effort document. So that's on myself, on Karen, on Ben, to make sure that everybody's getting them done and on time. So that pops up from time to time. That's not an annual thing, but those are the issues from the findings from this is for the year that ended last June. Anybody have any questions on that? The second thing I wanted to talk about was just bring your attention to a bill called Senate Bill 297. This is passed from the subcommittee in the Senate, and I think this whole Senate's going to vote on it now. And I'll start by saying that I am on the board of an organization called New Hampshire Interlocal Trust, which is a New Hampshire risk pool. So try not to be too boring, but risk pools are organizations in New Hampshire that where municipalities and school districts can join together to pool their money to buy a product, usually property liability insurance, workers' comp insurance, and health insurance. Those are the big three. SB 297 and these risk pools. So when we buy, our teachers and our parents have Cigna health insurance, but it's actually a pooled entity. So all these districts who participate in school care pool their money together, and then Cigna manages it. They're not buying it through like you would buy regular insurance. It's our pooled money. So these risk pools are not regulated by the Department of Insurance. They're regulated by the Secretary of State here in New Hampshire. SB 297 seeks to really change sort of the structure of how these work. Today, the Secretary of State's office put out, and we can share these documents. Did you see this document that came to me? Just came to me. So the risk pools, Primex is an organization that sells workers' comp and property liability. We have with them for workers' comp. Our property liability we have bought on a regular private insurance, so through Utica Insurance. School care sells Cigna. New Hampshire Interlocal Trust does Harvard Pilgrim, and a company called Health Trust, organization called Health Trust does Blue Cross Blue Shield. So Primex and school care have come out, they've published, they basically support this bill. New Hampshire Interlocal Trust, which is the organization I serve on the board for, so I have a little bit of a bias, and Health Trust do not. It's important to the districts because I guess I would say I'm going to be monitoring this further. I would just appreciate if you, I'll send you these things. You can maybe think of, from a school district perspective, these risk pools allow us to pool our power and typically buy insurance, I think, cheaper than you would on the market. Although, truthfully, I haven't gone out on the market and said, hey, can you cover us? We go through one of these risk pools. It puts strict limits on the money they have in reserve every year. They've already said you can only keep so much, from a lawsuit in the past where the firefighters of New Hampshire sued what is now Health Trust, said they kept too much money in reserve. There was a big regulation change where now if they have too much money in reserve, they have to give money back. So we have this thing called, from year to year, called a premium holiday, where we get, it's either, if in case of Health Trust, it's actually cash back. School care does it differently where they give you a credit off your bill. Anyway, so they can't keep too much money. This thing puts a limit, low end and a high limit on it. And most importantly for schools and people who participate in a trust, we would have to keep insurance cap reserve fund. I don't know if it would be a real cap reserve fund, but funds set aside. So if the Secretary of State feels that risk pool that you're participating in doesn't have enough money in reserve, the people who participate in that pool would say, hey, they'd be told you have to put more money into that. And so we would have to keep money aside in that fund for that purpose. The Secretary of State's argument today is that it would actually still benefit the districts. And I'll let you make your decision. But it can have a big impact because we do risk pools a lot. We do it for health, and we do it for dental, and we do it for workers' comp, and most other people do it for property liability. I'm worried that if these risk pools can't survive and they go out of business, or if 3 of them go out of business and there's 1 left, then you have no choice except for the private market, which I'm not afraid of. We've done it for property liability for years, but I just worry about the choice of districts. The reason why we have private insurance for property liability is the only risk pool in town now, after that lawsuit I referred to, the only risk pool in town for property liability is Primex. And they're just not subject to the same rules. So the transparency you get when you buy insurance for an organization through the Department of Insurance is very regulated, and they can only charge you so much based on your last 5 years and stuff. And Primex is, I've just found them to be more opaque. Why are my rates going up 10%? Well, because he had a lot of claims. Well, let me see the data on that, and I just haven't felt that they were as transparent as they should be. So I'm worried about choice. My biggest thing is that if Health Trust and NHIT feel they can't exist and so they dissolve, then we're left with only one risk pool for healthcare. We have, which is school care, which we have now, so that's fine. But I like being able to say, hey, school care, if your rates aren't too, if you just keep sucking, we're going to go to Health Trust. So it's SB 297. Just wanted you to be aware of it. Could be a big deal.
Tim, we can scan that and send that for them.
Yeah, this was an email I got like late today, so I can
Okay.
just forward the email.
Perfect, thank you.
You can also find the text of the bill online. Just
Yeah.
Or looking at SB.
I'll send you what I got from Health Trust and NHIT. I'll send out, so Primex and School Care said we generally support it. The other two sent out things on why this is the worst thing ever. And then the Secretary of State's office sent out a fact sheet today that they think answers those questions. So I think you should see the whole picture. Thank you. Budget update. So for the new people, so I'm required to sort of give a financial picture periodically. We do it monthly. We basically do it monthly from about November, December through May, well, June. But all the decisions that you guys have to make get made by the end of May. So I tried to provide a picture of our general fund spending, what we're budgeted for, and where we stand. And in your packet today is through February. I don't think I forgot to put a cover sheet. I apologize for that. I just realized that. So through February this year, we're 92.77% expended. That counts what we spent and what we've encumbered. February of last year, we were 93.2. So we've been kind of trending right with last year, but now we're a little better, at least through February. So I feel like we're in a good spot. There's nothing really crucial that came up in February that worried me a little bit. So I guess I'd ask you, as you look at it more, you'll learn more about it. But unless you have any questions, nothing really came up. I would say that as we come up closer to April break, typically we cut off spending. I turn off the ability to do POs right before April break. So by April break, in general, this is a general statement, purchasing or either buying or putting in a PO to buy for stuff for the whole school year should be pretty much wrapped up. And that allows me to use sort of the end of April, the beginning of May, to give you a good picture as to what might be left. So the decisions board members have to make is that we will, at some point, usually beginning of May, I'll present sort of a picture where I think we're going to end up. Maybe usually a list of projects of things that we would like to do with some of that money that's remaining, so the board can make a motion on it so we can close our books. Then I spent the summer filing reports with the state. Any questions about this?
A couple things stand out to me as being quite low in terms of its percent expenditure. I'm wondering if that's because programs were canceled, overestimated specific reasons or whatnot. But I noticed that, for example, at field trip transportation is 37% expended, or up from there, athletic transportation. Did we set aside a little more money than we thought we need just in case?
I think you'll see, especially with
prices went
athletics, that's not a number we can really encumber. So athletics, this is basically halfway through the winter season. So you're going to see the athletic number come up a lot, because what happens, instead of encumbering it ahead of time, the drivers go out and she comes back and she says, we did 3 trips last week, and we'll put it to the payroll then. So that's kind of unlike when a teacher signs her contract, we encumber the money for the whole year sort of ahead of time. Drivers it actually works. We encumber their general salary for doing routes, but for athletics, it kind of trails.
We're not at the same point in the expenditure cycle for sports.
Correct.
Correct.
Because most things, you're supposed to encumber as much as you can ahead of time. So when you're looking at this picture and you see the encumbrance column, is to the extent possible, you should encumber for the whole year. So at any given time, I'm trying to give you a snapshot of what it's going to look like at the end of the year. But athletics and field trips, I would say could be that we're doing more field trips. Sometimes I have to adjust things at the end of the year when I find out we spent more on field trips and we built it to the regular ed line, for example, and so I'll do a journal entry. But as far as I know, I've not been told that we're not doing field trips. They've certainly not been told not to do them because of money available. So if we're not doing them, it's because snow or whatever, somebody changed their mind.
Staff development and after school tutoring are only sent well. Are those kind of billed as they happen?
That would be, staff development has a lot of different things in there. The challenge with this is I could give you sort of the breakdown behind that, but that includes everything from the LEA money for different conferences and stuff. So that there's probably money available that someone hasn't claimed for yet, or and after school tutoring, that one should. I'll get you a better answer, but that runs when it's basically the middle school line. It runs when they're doing it. So I don't know if we're doing less than usual. I don't. There's not been any sort of conversation that way.
Essentially, yeah.
I actually looked at that line last year,
Yep.
and basically because of the contracts allocating X for all of the members, it's really up to the membership whether they use that money or not. In the last few years, they've not, and some of the unions have not really.
And that's, I guess, a thing that I'll keep in mind next week time we do.
I know Karen put an email out this week saying that the LEA money is essentially gone.
Oh, okay.
But there's still, that includes LSS, and includes LAG, and includes the administrative union, so, and a little bit in the SAU.
Thank you very much.
Two questions. The HACTC tuition shows as 400,000 expended and 436 encumbered. We're more than halfway through the year. So is that just, is this just a function of like how we pay them?
Right. So the 458 encumbered, I bet you're going to see that expended in March. It depends. So Shaylee encumbers that for the whole year, but we haven't paid the second bill yet, basically.
Okay, so that's just a function of like when we like pay things. Okay.
Right.
Second question, the debt services, we've got an adjustment of 645,000.
What I tried to show there is that we moved the total budget for our two bonds is $3,075,000, but in the conversation about the interest that was made on the second bond, we paid $645,000 of the debt service from that interest.
Okay.
Freeing up $645,000 in debt service.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much. Great.
That I can't wait till that goes away. Hopefully next year it'll go away.
Any other questions for Tim?
I have one more brief thing, is the MS-22, which is the form that I had reported to the state on what was actually approved from the warrant last week. It takes the budget warrant article, and in this case, the LEA warrant article, and puts them all together. I have to put that together by the end of the month, so I'm going to be asking everyone, and then you guys have to sign it. We're going to be asking you to stop by the SAU sometime in the next week or so to sign that document, and it literally is the numbers that were on the warrant displayed differently. Elementary, middle, and the warrant you paid, there was one big number, $53 million. This is like elementary, middle, high coming out to $53 million. Same, it's just a different document for the state. Thank you.
Tim, I had a question too. I just wanted to make sure, when do we need to have a special hearing about bringing the money for the special ed?
I was going to talk to you about doing that at one of our 2 April meetings. I have a couple of things that I'd like to see in April done.
Great, we can connect and I will speak to Chair and Vice Chair to figure out which meeting. Thank you.
Also, speaking of going to the SAU, when Tim, before or after, we all of us need to go to the SAU at some point and stop by for photos, because we're now going to have IDs that can help us swipe into the buildings for our meetings. So we need to go to
Actually, it's Dawn.
Dawn,
And
okay.
facilities will get that. I believe Joe and Layla.
Have
will
already done it,
yeah.
so the rest of us need to do it. So stop by Dawn in facilities at some point to get your photo taken for IDs.
And that is just the SAU.
Just the SAU, yeah.
Did you guys do paperwork to get paid too?
Yes.
Jerry has it right now.
You get it, I mean, it's gonna make or break you, but you get $1,000. You need you to fill out the appropriate forms.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. That brings us up to the DDECIA. And why don't you tell everyone what that stands for, Karen? Yeah, for the new people.
I'm not sure if that one's working. Probably best to sit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Push the button when it's red, it's on.
Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Dubois. I'm the District Director of Equity, Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment. I have just a brief update, as Amy said, about some of our professional learning and growth that's gone on in the district. First, we want to celebrate 3 of our LHS teachers in their excellent work. Laurel Pollard, our LHS computer science teacher, is currently pursuing grant-funded coursework through the Artificial Intelligence Academy at North Carolina State. This is enhancing her computer science instructional experience at a really high level, and we're very proud of her. John Tejan, LHS science teacher, has been awarded the prestigious Albert Einstein Distinguished Educator Fellowship by the U.S. Department of Energy. So he will be taking his previously approved sabbatical next year. This is a program that places outstanding STEM educators in federal agencies or congressional offices to contribute to national education policy and research. Never a better time for that. So we're very proud of his acceptance into that competitive program. And finally, LHS social studies teacher Hannah LeClaire has been accepted into the Alexander Initiative at Vanderbilt University, a selective program focused on advancing educational leadership in social studies. This initiative includes a week-long summer residential experience at Vanderbilt, followed by monthly remote coaching and roundtable discussions and a capstone project. Both Mr. Tejan and Ms. LeClaire will earn generous stipends for these very competitive and selective programs that they've been accepted into. We are really proud of their work.
Yeah, congratulations. We're sad to lose them for the time, lose Mr. Tejan for a little bit, but we're glad that Ms. LeClaire and Ms. Pollard are getting additional training. We appreciate that too.
They're totally thrilled.
Has placement been decided yet? I know
Pardon?
has Mr. Teachin's placement been decided? I know there were some options.
Yes, I think we'd love to have him come and tell you. Actually, to be honest, they haven't officially announced the placements yet, so I think I'm not supposed to tell you that part.
Don't do that.
We
then.
can bring him in later
Yes,
in the
sounds great.
spring, or I can
Don't break
provide a
the rules
further
for me.
update. Exciting suspense about where his placement will be. I also just wanted to provide a brief update on our district-wide in-service Learning Day on March 10th. As a little bit of background, our district has really been working to enhance our professional learning experiences over the last 2 years. We historically had mixed results from our district-wide in-service days, to be honest. We had absenteeism was a bit of a problem, and buy-in, not all educators felt it was always a relevant day. I'm pleased to report that we've moved in the direction of research-based, evidence-based approaches. We are really working hard to make sure the day includes collaborative opportunities and job-embedded learning that seems directly relevant to educators' role in the district, and that fosters a culture of continuous improvement and boosts teacher agency. We are really happy that these efforts seem to be paying off. This last week, all of the educators in the district, paraeducators and teachers alike, were introduced to our new educator effectiveness and evaluation framework and the supporting timeline and digital management tools that go along with that. The new framework is tailored to specific educator roles within the district and is inclusive of our paraeducators alongside our teachers and staff. The reaction to the learning was really positive. Feedback forms reflected that between 95 and 100% of the educators in each building felt that the presentation was relevant, clear, and that they understand the why and the how behind our new system, so we're really excited. Later in the day, we embedded collaborative learning opportunities and practical hands-on teacher agency pristine endeavors, so every educator had some element of choice in their day. Again, the feedback was really positive, and we're just very excited about this. Another indicator in addition to these feedback surveys is absenteeism, which is trending downward steadily over our last several mid-year district in-service days, and was yet again lower this time around. So we're very pleased. Notably, the leadership of our paraeducator union specifically came and approached me and said this was a much more positive experience for their constituent group than in previous years. We embedded a menu of paraeducator learning opportunities, and folks could choose sessions that were the most relevant to their work and pursue them on their own or in small groups at various points. Lots of great learning happened. So we're going to keep going with that trend. That's all I've got for you today. Does anyone have
Questions for Karen? Hit your
But, so you keep data on the attendance rates?
We do.
Great. And you're pleased with the trend line?
Yes.
Great.
I'll just, in defense of our educators over the past year, it can be very difficult to do things like schedule doctor's appointments. So sometimes educators are absent on our in-service days for good reasons, because they don't want to miss time with students. So it is not that people are ducking professional responsibility necessarily, but we want to make sure that we're offering something that's a compelling, student-centered reason to be there and really is focused on student growth and achievement. I think our new educator effectiveness system ties professional learning to professional growth and conversations with your supervisor in a way that felt meaningful, hopefully.
Thanks. Any other questions for Karen? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, that takes us to unfinished business.
This will be tabled until our attorneys provide those robust review of all of those policies, which Richard and I can determine which can come right directly here and which one will go through policy committee.
Okay, great. So remains tabled. We don't have to vote about that.
Nope, keep it tabled.
Okay, moving on to new business. Discussion and approve.
Sure,
Actually,
yes,
action.
I'd like to talk, yes, action. Sorry. I'm looking for approval. All right, I'd like to talk about girls ice hockey in their cooperative agreements. So for the 24-25 season, we had a cooperative agreement with Stevens High School in Kearsarge. We are asking to dissolve our agreement with Stevens because they have no current players in the program and no incoming players. Next year, we would like to add Mascoma, join the Females Girl Cooperative. Right now, the girls Mascoma player is playing on our boys hockey team because they do not have a. So all parties are in agreement. So I am looking forward to this board to take action to approve this, and so I can send this to the NHIA.
Anybody have any?
I'll make a motion to approve the girls' co-op ice hockey between Lebanon, Kearsarge, and Mascoma.
And that?
By John, second by Richard. Any additional discussion or question? All those in favor? Okay, great.
I just wanted to update you with the boys cooperative high school. Again, it's Lebanon, Stevens, Mascoma. We are in conversations between Stevens that they do not have students, so they were looking to not be in the cooperative. So we will have an update, but Mascoma will continue a member, our cooperative, but I wanted just to put that on your radar.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that brings us to our suspension of rules. So we need to take discussion. Actually, the rule we're suspending is the first and second reading of policies and discussion action on policy KFR.
So KFR is in your packet, and it is the policy and procedures for using school district buildings and facilities. This is the procedure part of the KF policy, and why this has changed is because we have those new lovely spaces at our high school, Hanover Street and Mount Lebanon. So we needed to include those prices, our procedures, so we can actively rent them out.
So all this is doing is updating the chart in the procedure, the chart in the procedure to include the spaces that now can be rented, like the Hanover Street School cafeteria.
The vestibule, yep.
Yeah.
And so the reason for the suspension of rules is that these spaces are presumably in demand, and expediency for a minor change allows us to bring in some income.
Yeah, exactly. Are there any questions? All right. Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
For the SAU as well, I know there was hope for like the gym and auditorium in particular to be hopefully rented more. Do we have an indication that of parties that are interested, or this is just our numbers and we don't necessarily have other parties interested?
So this policy distinguishes the actual policy, not this one that's in front of you, but KF, distinguishes there's sort of tier 1 users, I don't know what they're called, they have a special name. Category 1
Category
users,
1.
Category 2 users, Category 3 users. Categories 1 and 2, I believe, don't pay because it's like the city. It's things that we have agreements with already. And so lots of those people are currently using the SAU facilities as well. So and there's this Category 3 users which sometimes use the SAU facilities, but not that often right now. Election times, they are used more often, like national election times sometimes. But right now, we know that those spaces are being utilized. And is your question, could they be utilized more, or what's your?
I guess I was kind of more interested in Category 3 interest, if that's been expressed, which you mentioned during national elections tends to be a little bit more.
Yeah, the elections, they moved board 1 there, but that is a Category 1. The SAU gym is used quite heavily, but there's little revenue because it's almost all city use, which is free, according to this policy.
Right.
But it is used for basketball, even through, there's a pitching machine in there for softball. It's pretty heavily used, which is something to consider when you're talking about the SAU. What happens to the gym? The auditorium is used mostly, right now, mostly by our theater department. We're using it. It's not very heavily used, but we haven't gotten a lot of, hey, I want to rent it out things either. You know who rents it out sometimes is a lot of political candidates during
That's what I meant.
primaries. But it wasn't the last 2 cycles. But I saw Andrew Wang there a couple years ago in 2016. So it is
Thank
used.
you.
People have reached out, work with our facilities department. John Kerber is our director of facilities, and we try to accommodate people with our spaces if they're available.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to waive our first and second reading and approve policy KF-R, use of district buildings and facilities.
Second that.
All right, motion by John, second by Richard. Any additional questions? All right, all those in favor? Great. All right, we are going to reopen public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? No, there is not. Is there any online?
There's no public comment online.
Okay, great. We will close public comment again. Okay, so for new people, actually for everyone, we have committee assignments on the board, and I'm going to ask some people right now to give me like a really brief description of what the committees are that you have served on in the past, so everyone knows what they are. And then after this meeting, between now and Sunday, hopefully, I'd like people to send me a list of sort of preferences. I would love to be on these committees. I hate being on these committees. It would never be a good idea. I will not be able to take all of those wants and desires into, I'll take them into consideration. I won't be able to match all of them. And when you talk about your committee, if you could say when you normally meet, that would be helpful too, so people know when committees meet. So we have the Education Committee. Tia, can you tell us about the Education Committee?
Yes, at the Education Committee, we do a lot of work with the Director of Curriculum and the Director of Student Support Services, or is it just Student Services?
Student Services.
Okay. So we do that. We also do the student handbooks and the extracurricular handbooks. anything else? I'm looking through the policy, actually. That's really the big gist of.
Calendar
The
and-
calendar, yeah,
Academic calendar.
academic calendar. Prove that and run that through.
And we meet,
We
Ah.
meet monthly, Mondays at 4:15.
but all of these meetings are subject to change. Once the committees are decided, then people can readjust. But currently, meeting Mondays at 4:15. Okay, then we have finance facilities. Jessica.
Thank you. Finance facilities does what it sounds like. We talk about money and buildings. The Finance Facilities Committee, I think, is technically sort of kind of in charge of the budget process, but really that's a full board endeavor, but the Finance and Facilities Committee is part of that process. I would say that we talk a lot about the capital reserve fund and the capital improvement plan, meaning what are we going to do with all of our buildings and when and how much is it going to cost. We meet, it's all over the place. It's mostly monthly, but I would say during the lead up to the budget, it changes a little, but it's mostly monthly. Often it's been Mondays like 4 to 6, but that was dependent on people's schedules. We basically, when the committee got together, we said, these are the days and times that work for the committee members, and then set the time.
Great, thanks. P&N, Richard.
Yeah, I guess I can describe P&N because
Yeah.
I'm left. What's left?
I'm on it too.
I know. The head of P&N just left, so we're
And tell us what it stands for.
personnel and negotiations. A personnel and negotiations committee is responsible for our collective bargaining agreements. So in this past year, we negotiated with the LEA, the Lebanon Education Association, and set up basically most of the teacher contracts for the next. We have 3 other unions that we negotiate with as well. Could not name them off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Only one is coming this year, I think.
Yes, and only one will be coming up this
The
Those-
paraprofessional.
Those meetings are kind of, they are when they are, and they are hard to schedule because they are done with
And the union.
and the unions, and unions for the lawyers for the unions, and so they are when they are. It's
So, during the negotiation season, they can be pretty frequent, and then there's nothing for
A
a
long
long
time.
time. So
We sometimes met, I mean, I think sometimes we had meetings.
days, right?
Like an entire day. We would have like a meeting once a week for certain periods, then sometimes bi-weekly, but then nothing for 10 months.
At the beginning of the negotiation, there is an entire meeting that is just setting out meetings for the next 3 months.
A meeting of meetings. How exciting. All right, thank you. Let's see, policy. This is also you, Richard.
I know it is.
So-
So at policy, we basically, we look at the policies. We look at policies that need revisiting because things come up about them. We look at policies that have not been revisited for some time. We are just implementing a switch over in our policy book software from Diligent, name of the manufacturer, from Community, or sorry, from
Board Docs.
Board Docs, which is one that's online right now, to one called Community. And that will hopefully help us to better keep track of the last time a policy was updated and put in a schedule policies that have not been revisited in 5 or 10 years automatically get. But that's kind of what we're doing. We typically meet Mondays at 8:15 at the SAU once a month, but sometimes those meetings go for the half the day if we've got a lot on our plates. So I'm going to try and avoid that, but that might mean more than one. Let's see.
Okay, great, thanks. Let's see, Joint City District Task Force. Jessica, you talk about this one again, too.
The School District City Task Force is a task force where a couple of the board members meet with a couple of members of the city council, including the city manager. And we have covered a number of topics in those meetings. It's often a sharing of information exercise in terms of, here's what's happening with our budget, here's what's happening with our budget, let's talk about things that are coming up. But it's also a place where if there are topics that affect both the school district and the city, that's a place where we could get together in an official meeting and talk about them. So I would say it's, and the meetings I think are quarterly, usually on like a Thursday from 6, no,
Yeah.
you're shaking your head at me.
No, that's right.
Okay,
Yep,
yeah,
6 to 7.
Thursdays from like 6 to 7, and that is what I know.
And this year, we are going to have, now we're losing the city manager, so it might take a bit. We're planning to have a meeting with all of our board and all of the new city council, just to sort of say, hey, we're all in this together, and to meet each other and get together. We don't know when that's going to happen because now the city manager is leaving, so we have to work that out, but that's the plan going forward. So that they're more collegial meetings anyway, and we aren't strangers. All right, then we've got SWAC, Tia, which stands for?
It stands for Student Wellness Action Committee, right? Advisory Committee. So SWAC is actually, it's mandated through USDA. So there is quite a bit of focus on nutrition and the policies around nutrition within the district. And we also have the PE teachers who are part of these and try to have somebody from every school attending these. They're only quarterly. We have been trying to make a more robust plan around mental health with the students also. Yeah, that's a big piece of it is the nutritional mandated aspect. So,
Thank you. HACTC, Amy, I'm going to have you do that one because Richard's done a lot.
Sure. HACTC is the Hartford Technical Center Regional Advisory Board. So we again meet quarterly. We meet with the superintendents from the regional area and their board members, and always have a nice lunch provided by the Hartford area school, and we talk about the calendar, we talk about programming, we talk about legislation. They're from the excellent part of, and that usually meets right around lunchtime, 11:45. We're usually out of there around 1.
May I ask a question? The HACTC agreement, when?
The tuition agreement, you mean?
Yeah. When, how often does that how long does it extend for?
That's a good question. It's not like
Thank
the
you,
area.
Tim.
I'm not as aware of that as I am with area agreement, for example, people vote on it. I actually don't know the process, sort of the coalition or whatever you call it, to put that together, if there's a expiration date or
We can
whatever.
get back to
Have to
that. I
find
know
out.
they kept their tuition rates
Yeah.
the same, and like I have talked to them too, just that we have a large amount of students that go there. So as you know, our budget, look at that number. So I think we have as many students as Hartford Technical Center. So they are interested as one of their partners in the board packet. And I know when we do those meeting updates, Richard and I were at the meeting, and there's lots of information going on at Vermont that we're watching closely. They are potentially talking about looking at CT, shaking it up and making regional centers. So as they were talking about making 5 or 6 school districts in Vermont, they would have 5 or 6 centers. We're kind of leaving, like, what does that mean for us as a New Hampshire school that's to Hartford OTEC. So we did include that packet in there just so people could watch that. They didn't have any more information other than that. It's the governor's proposal for education transfer.
Thank you.
Stands for?
Yep.
CTE. Career and Technical Center. All right. Oh. Okay. All right. Thank you. So then we have the area group, which stands for Authorized Regional Enrollment Area. Area stands for area, which is super fun. And it is the agreement that we have, a 10-year agreement with our sending schools, so with Grantham and with Plainfield. And so we meet with the superintendents of those districts and the members of the boards of those districts. and we talk about issues that affect our sending schools and that affect the area as a whole. And that is quarterly, and it's usually on an evening, but it changes because it's a whole bunch of people scheduling that meeting. So the people work together and it's
We each host a meeting, so every year
It
the meeting
rotates.
rotates.
and the places rotate every meeting too. So we are sometimes here, sometimes in Grantham, and sometimes in Plainfield. They'll tell you in advance, so you're a surprise. And then last but not least, the legislative affairs team. John, can you talk about that?
I was going to say,
You get to talk about it.
We are a group that meets really when the legislative season is kind of ongoing, and we will bring to the board a variety of thoughts on different pieces of legislation. So example, tonight Tim suggested that we take a look at SB 297. The legislative group might have a conversation about that, and then we might write a letter. It's kind of hard to get all of us to agree, but in any event, we would inform if we didn't write a letter for a particular thing. So that's pretty much what we do.
You have a question?
Yes. Does that mean how would somebody on the committee research things that are going on? Is there like an expectation, commitment beyond that?
So we have to kind of keep up, and NHSBA will actually,
Hampshire School
the New,
Association?
thank you, the New Hampshire School Board Association will send you an email every week with a legislative update, which is pretty good. And then there are, those of us that are on the committee kind of pay attention to other things as well.
Thanks. Okay, so those are the committees, and based on what you've heard about what they cover and what times they meet, although, again, the time should not be a barrier, but if you know already, like I can never do meetings that are sort of during the school day or whatever, that's something that you'll want to let me know in an email. So your preferences, like your top 3 or 4 committees, everyone's going to be on probably 3 at least, and I try to balance monthly and quarterly, and again, this is not a perfect science because there's not an even number of things, there's not an even number of people, so we move things around. People who have been on committees, losing 3 board members, we'll try and keep some of the committees, people who've been on them, the same, because we need some continuity going forward. But also people who are on committees can say, I'm tired of X, I would like to try Y, and that's always a good thing. When I first joined, I was put on finance and facilities and thought, I actually suggested 4 different things and got none of the things, and I was put on finance and facilities and a bunch of other places that I didn't need to be. And I thought, this is the worst thing ever. I'm never going to understand anything. It was great. I learned so many things, but it was a steep learning curve. And I felt like the first 6 months, I just sat there very quietly listening. And by the end, I knew a lot more and felt like I was much more prepared for the budget season than I had been going into that. So sometimes it's good to think about something that you're strong in, and then also something that you might need to learn more about, and pick one of those as well, or give some preferences. So if you can send me those emails by, this is for everyone, if you can send me those emails by Sunday, then I can make those assignments and have them out by the next board meeting, and then everybody will know what they're supposed to do. Because meetings will start right up soon. But all these are TV. Okay, so Finance and Facilities met in February, and again, we don't know when the next one is. Policy Committee also met in February. Next meeting will happen. Again, they'll all happen after this next board meeting, so after the April board meeting, they'll all start happening. EC met in March. P&N met in November. Student Wellness Advisory Committee met on January 8th, and their next meeting is May 7th at the SAU office. We do know that. HACTC met on March 12th, and their next meeting is May 6th at HACTC. The Area Committee met on February 27th at LMS, and our next meeting is May 20th at Grantham Village School. That's what that stands for. The School District and City Task Force met on January 23rd, and as I said, we are on hold for that for multiple reasons, so we'll figure out what's going on with there. Oh, and then the Housing Task Force, I didn't have you talk about this because it's just your assignment. You're not leaving that, but you can tell us what it is. You can just explain what it is.
The Housing Task Force is,
My
was
fault. It's my
put,
fault.
it
yeah,
was
it's
put
Sorry,
together
It is my fault.
by the city to really take a look at housing and work on the master plan chapter for Lebanon in regard to housing. And there's a grant that the city's received, and they asked for a school board member, so I've been the rep. And by way of an update, we met March 17th. We looked at our housing data, which I like to call the count. The city's been working on kind of how many housing units and so forth and so on, and it's been going through several iterations, so they gave us an update on the count. And so that presentation is nearing completion. And then our consultants that we're using the grant to pay for, the housing needs presentation, we went through the housing needs presentation for a second time. It's pretty comprehensive, and it looks not just at Lebanon, but the region. And RKG, the consultants that we're using, they're really, really good. So a lot going on there. And then we voted on a community engagement logo for the Housing Task Force. And we looked at the engagement plan, so how we're going to be engaging the community around housing in the coming months. And
Okay,
that's the update.
thank you. All right, future agenda items, board member recommendations or questions? Yes, Jessica?
Can we share the report from last meeting with the new board members?
Sure.
Yes, the
I will.
enrollment
study.
So there was an enrollment study, and it was more comprehensive really than an enrollment study. It was sort of a Lebanon demographics study for the next 10 years. That was very detailed and informative, and has pretty heavy weight in terms of like what happens and what we're doing as a district. We just got the results from that, and so it would be worth y'all taking a look at it.
We had done one several years, 10 years ago almost, and it turns out that our enrollment data and our demographic data had skewed really closely to what the data was from that, so that's helpful because it helps us know going forward. We have a lot of confidence that the same.
It was quite accurate.
Yeah, it was really accurate, so accuracy will be helpful.
Can I would actually suggest also sending, I think that was the spectrum study, the one from what was that, the big?
Now you put that name in my head, so I can't think of it.
Prismatic. So the Prismatic study that was both an enrollment study and a like comprehensive evaluation of the district, the like facilities and
Facilities, it was designed to be a
whatever else.
facility study, right?
Yeah. I know that you dug that up for us a little while ago. I would also suggest sharing that with the new
Yeah,
board
we
members.
have it electronically.
Because I think that those are, my experience as a new board member was that you get, like, everything continues happening. Like, we're just still doing stuff that you guys are not going to have any idea what's happening for a little while. I mean, maybe you're incredibly well informed and that's great, but also I found it very helpful to have some documents that gave a pretty broad-based sense of like what we have as a district, what is happening at a sort of like projected out level. So we have some information I think that we could probably share with you guys.
Great, thanks. That's a good point. Okay, any other recommendations, questions, future agenda items? Yes?
T and I had a conversation just since we're the remainder of the legislative team. There are 3 kind of bills that are out there, and we didn't know if the board was interested in learning more or taking action in any way. But HB 675 is a budget cap bill that narrowly passed the House and is now in the Finance Committee. Which looks like is going to move forward, and I know some local districts are writing letters. And then the other 2, HB 115 and SB 295, those are different versions of voucher bills that would eventually eliminate income cap for the education freedom accounts in the state. So those are 3 areas we didn't know if we wanted to do anything, but don't, at least you know what they are and can look for them.
Yeah, if you would like us to write up a letter, maybe of opposition.
I would strongly suggest a letter of opposition to the tax cap legislation. The way these things tend to be written is with the best of intentions and the worst of results. Essentially, a tax cap means that what they usually do is they usually pin it to an inflation measure that is the lowest version of an inflation, and that does not usually address the actual cost rising.
It's 2.5% in the cap
bill.
is,
And that's
yeah, ridiculous.
that's not going to work. And so what that's going to effectively mean is a budget cut for every school district in New Hampshire every year forever.
Plus, we got an override on.
Right,
Yeah.
2/3.
2/3 override in our warrant, we could override it, but yeah, that's. I personally went down and testified against HB 675 as a parent, and also as a board member, but not representing this board, just representing myself, because I do feel like it is way that it's written is so very, very detrimental. It just means that you keep reducing the amount of money that you can spend on kids and reducing the amount of services you can give to kids but the law doesn't change. So what you're required to do federally doesn't change, although potentially it could, but it doesn't. Right now, it's not changing, and there's no other increase in funding from the state to offset the increasingly decreasing cap. And furthermore, I feel like it takes local control away from school boards, and I think that's, if nothing else, whether you're in favor of tax caps or not, I think that particular question is legislative overreach.
I think that's something that I feel like is a very unifying reality in New Hampshire and in our area, is the concept that is, in my understanding of it, it pretty much puts a stake in the heart of local control of the school districts and spending, which is, I think, something that people may not really understand, and it would be, to me, that's one that a lot of people would have a lot more sympathy for across a lot of divides.
Is there any provision in this bill for if the federal government decides to cut its?
No.
So we have to make that up, but we couldn't make that up.
No.
Right. No kidding. Well, unfortunately, it's partisan.
So
favor
do
of the-
you guys feel like you could make a draft of something?
Yeah, do you
Okay.
want to lead it, or do you want me to do it? Okay.
And then the voucher bills, we haven't talked a lot about those in our districts. I don't actually know where I don't know where everyone stands. I know where some of you stand on vouchers, but I don't know where everyone, on the education freedom accounts is called here. I don't know what we want to do about that. What do people think about the education freedom accounts?
I preferred when they had on them income cap on them.
Universal. Thoughts?
I am not supportive of education freedom accounts. I'll just put that out there, especially not universal.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think that the education freedom accounts are selling they're selling a bundle of goods that they cannot ever achieve, right? So they're telling people that this money that you're about to get, $4,600, is going to solve all of your problems, and you just take it and give it to any old school and it'll be fine. But then the schools that you go to have no special education provisions, have less certifications, have all these different problems. And so I feel like it's selling something that isn't really ever going to be achieved.
Well, it's also taking public tax dollars and putting them in areas that are not being regulated.
The cost about this bill would be about 100 million
Or it'd be
More.
280.
more total.
I'm in agreement with Tia that I do not support that.
I think I'm going to suggest then that if you're okay with writing 2 letters, you could draft a second one in opposition.
You want to split it? You can do the first one and I'll do the vouchers.
I'm going to just say slightly different words,
Okay.
just to balance things out. I think that we've talked on this, in this board about saving our fire a little bit. We are a nonpartisan board. We are not elected by parties. We represent an entire district. We represent a wide variety of perspectives. While I think that personally held beliefs are very important, I also really value the board's role as a often neutral or at least reserved body. I think that that actually contributes to its strength when it does choose to speak. I think that one of the best ways that districts can prove that they are doing great things with taxpayer money is to show great results and have great schools and prove to people why they would want their children to be in those schools. I think that we're doing a great job of that. So I just would say that I am less eager to venture as a board into that topic, partly because I'm not sure it's as urgent at this moment. I would certainly welcome the conversation as a board if we felt that there was an urgency for our district that was really pressing, and I would welcome any conversation, but I think that I really value the board's previous decisions to speak when we feel very strongly about a topic very clearly. And I think that, to me, the tax caps has a more universal feel to it because it strikes at local control. So those are my words.
I'd like to counter a little bit. I feel like particularly this election cycle, it was really, really clear that the citizens of Leb are extremely upset by the tax burden and the tax burden only seeming to go up. And that's why I actually do think a vocal response, a vocal opposition to something that we do have the expertise and understanding that approving vouchers just whenever, this is something where we would be the kind of special representatives of understanding that's going to have a whole other monetary burden that's not going to be provided otherwise.
Do we have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it.
Do we have any data on what the changes to the, not the tax cap one, the vouchers rules would have, what effect that would have on Lebanon School District? Or projections?
They have projections about district by district.
Broken down, but I think just going back to that piece is that the state is still not funding special ed to its obligations, and so we're now adding to a budget deficit of $280. The money will be coming from somewhere.
Okay.
Do we want to vote on the voucher draft, or do we not? How do we
Or
wanna-
is it worth preparing a draft and then deciding whether, or do we have not a time? When is the
I
public
don't
comment period?
mind putting a draft and saying respectful, not putting a draft. I wanted to get the feel of the.
Do you know when the next hearing is? I'm going to a legislative update
When is that?
from this.
675 hasn't been scheduled yet, and they only put it out every Thursday, so it may be like, we don't know, but 115 and 295 are they're a little ways out.
Okay.
They're not like that urgent.
Sorry,
But this was
which
the
one
same.
which? 675 is?
The-
Okay, and so that's going to be before we have a chance to meet again.
The
Tax
text
cap one.
on it.
So I'm going to make a motion to authorize Tia and John to write a letter in opposition to tax cap.
Are we authorizing them to bring a draft to the board or
No.
to issue a letter without the board's approval?
Yes, because we are not coming back in time for that letter.
I second.
That's my motion. We can Vote no on it if you want.
Sorry, motion by Richard, second by Layla, thank you. Discussion, go ahead. Want to say something? You look like you were. You're just, okay. Is there a discussion?
I mean, again, I am very supportive of the notion of a letter. I think I feel quite strongly that the board absolutely should see a letter and explicitly approve a letter before sending it. I think that if this is a topic that we feel strongly enough about to issue a formal letter on behalf of our district and our constituents, I think that we need to see it. And I think that if we want to have an emergency meeting in order to do that, we are able to do that. So I think I do not agree with the idea of sending people off to, not sending, like, just, I believe that that when the board speaks, it needs to know what it is saying, and it needs to have reviewed its words on behalf of its constituents. And if we feel strongly enough about this, I would be fine to have a meeting that would accommodate the timeline, but I don't agree with overriding that principle.
I don't think it has to be an elegant letter. I think it could literally say that we are opposed to HB 675 due to the impact on local control. And that's it.
Possible budget cuts, right? Those were the two things. That's what it would.
So it could be, you're saying it could be a very brief statement which says the things that we just said.
Yeah.
Would you be okay with if we literally drafted it right now?
If we, yeah, I think if we sort of said right now, like, hey, it's going to be about 2 lines, and it's going to say, yes, yes, I feel fine about that, as long as the board has a chance to see what it's saying, and whatever, that's fine.
I have to draft something.
He's very good.
Very quick this way.
And these are conversations that we've had in the past.
Yeah.
And we know the legislative team struggled with this.
Because
last
the
year.
timing is always problematic, because the often these things happen in between a meeting, and from the time that we've heard about it, then there's a hearing before we ever coming back. So it is a tricky situation. Sometimes we have more time, sometimes we don't. So
I think with a timing concern and it being up in the air, just getting the draft together makes sense.
hold on, they're drafting something. We'll give them a minute. They're drafting as they go. All right, while they're working on that, I think that I can tell you the important dates and district announcements. So the next school board meeting is April 9th at 6:30 p.m. here. The following school board meeting is April 23rd, also at 6:30 p.m. here. The things that new and old board members need to do is visit the SAU to get your pictures taken, and email me before Sunday with your preferences for committee assignments. Just about email for new people. So when you email something, usually if you want something to be emailed to the entire board for whatever reason, which usually you wouldn't need to do that, but if you did, you can't email the whole board. We can't have a whole board on an email chain unless it's about something like a meeting time, because it's considered a public meeting, right? So if you are going to email something, just don't email directly to me or email directly to Amy. If you ever email directly to Amy, you should be CCing me as well, just so I'm aware of what's happening, what questions people are asking Amy. Not that I'm approving those questions, just so that I know what the questions are.
And I've talked about this last time when we updated our board members to, if you have direct questions like for Tim or for Karen, I have no problem you emailing them directly and just CCing me. I know previously before they wanted everything to go filtered. I prefer to kind of just, hey, Tim, just CC. I know, so we can.
Same thing. So Amy knows what questions are being asked, and so I know what questions are being asked. That's the easiest thing to do. There very rarely, every once in a while, I'll send out a full email to everyone saying, hey, everybody needs to do this, or fill out your evaluations, or do this thing, just so that you can do it, but we don't reply to those. As soon as we reply all, it's bad things, don't reply all. we do not reply all in the board. Richard, how's it going?
1 second.
Okay.
I can give him a second by bringing up something I think the new members and I kind of mentioned. It might be worth the board having a one-page for when somebody goes to sign up to run as a candidate that kind of explains a few things, For instance, we didn't know we were meeting in March. I kind of assumed it would follow the academic year. There's been just like some kind of communication clarity would be really helpful, I think, particularly because for our election, 2 people ended up dropping out from the race, which kind of had some kind of funny results when people were voting. But just a little bit more clarity.
That's a good idea. We can absolutely do that. And we would just have to work with the city to have it available when people come because they actually declare at the city, right? So,
Right.
But yeah, we can definitely, that's a good idea. And
Yeah.
we can get something, get a draft and then get it back to you all because you've done it most recently to say, this would be helpful to know. This would be, I wish I knew this before we started.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Okay, perfect. That's a great idea.
Okay, I would like to amend my previous
Thank you.
motion.
Okay.
I now move that we send the following message in opposition to HB 675.
Which you are going to
Which I will now-
email to,
Yes, but which I will also read out loud right now.
okay, yes, yes.
The Lebanon, New Hampshire School Board stands in opposition to the passage of HB 675. If passed, this bill would take away important local control from New Hampshire school boards and seriously limit their ability to budget responsibly. We strongly urge against the passage of this bill and urge you to leave control of budgeting in local hands.
Second.
Yeah. How does everybody feel about that? Okay, so we're
Oh,
gonna,
sorry.
so second by Layla, right? You
Okay.
second the amendment, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Great, excellent. So if you can just email it to me and I'll send it over to
Absolutely, I
her,
will.
because I've got her email address. Okay, anything else? I need another motion. Yeah,
Motion to adjourn.
okay.
I'll second that one.
Okay, John makes a motion, Richard seconds. All those in favor? Great, thank you all very much.